The Cubs have to replace Justin Steele, and it sounds like from reports that they're going to do that internally. What other options do they have in April? Who's going to trade an ace right now? We'll get into that. Jed Hoyer was asked about optioning Matt Shaw. He and Craig Counsell both talked about it. I'm going to explain why they did it. And something else he said about the bullpen is that we need 8 guys that are giving us consistent outings. One of those guys, Eli Morgan, is dealing with an injury. So we'll talk about that as well. All that right here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Like, subscribe, thumbs up. I know I ask you guys that every single day, but I appreciate it. Also share. Cardinals fans, I know you guys have no idea how to do more than one thing. Walking and chewing gum for you is difficult. Let's go. Hey everybody, Mick Gillespie, Cubs Baseball channel. I say this a lot. I think I need to reiterate that. Let me throw that up there at Broadcaster Mick on the socials. I've been a Cubs fan since '84. Tells you how old I am, and I've been in the organization since 2007. And I love the Cubs, and I love talking about the Cubs with you guys on our channel every single day. So it's not just a job; it's also a passion for me. So thank you. And all you guys that comment, I appreciate it so much. I love reading those and knowing that we kind of have a community built here. So let's go. Let's get this thing started. And let me start right here with this. Expect the Cubs to replace Justin Steele with internal options. I'm not surprised by this. You know, some pundits were like, well, you know what? The Cubs may be after Sandy Alcantara of the Mariners, of the Marlins. What would they give up for him? Blah, blah, blah. Look, man, it's April. It's today's April 16th. Like, they're not that team, even if they stink, they're not going to make that deal. They want to go out there and contend. It's just too early. And that's why the Cubs are saying that, because you can't give up Owen Casey in this deal. Not now, not yet. You got to see what you got. And that's what they're going to do. And we kind of start with, I feel like Cade Horton. I've told you guys this before. I'm going to tell you this again, that if this guy comes in healthy and he gets a little bit more consistent throwing strikes, he's the real deal. Yeah, listen to me. He is the real deal. Now, in baseball, health and pitching, health is a big part of it, but he's the real deal. This guy can go out there and do a lot of things well. And so I'm telling you, when you look at what the Cubs have in the minor leagues, they don't have a lot of pitching depth as far as prospects go, but this guy could be elite. And I think that if he would have stayed healthy last year, he'd have made it to the big leagues already. So he's off to a pretty good start. It's only a few outings, but the Cubs need him to step up, and I feel like that's going to happen eventually. But if he's not ready, what do you look at? Well, it starts with Javier Assad. I would have had him as the 5th starter anyway. Dealt with an injury at the beginning of the year, was like an oblique. He's got to come back from that. He, to me, is just a pitcher's pitcher, man. Like, goes out there, throws strikes. It feels like every time you think he's about to fall off the edge of the cliff, he makes a big pitch and gets out of it. He's a competitor. And I got a feeling that if when he comes back healthy, he's got the potential to have a really good season for the Cubs. So I think it starts with him. Obviously, Jordan Wicks is someone that you would look at and think about this spot. But the Cubs have a lot of depth as far as pitching goes and starting pitching. And they probably knew internally that Steele was dealing with this elbow injury last year. And so that's maybe why they went out and got guys like Colin Ray. That is in the rotation now, knowing that, hey, we got these guys in here, and then we add him, and then, if something happens, it happens, right? Sad thing is that Steele's last outing was his best one in a long time, and he's not going to be there. So anyway, Sandy Alcantara is still on the table to me, but the Marlins aren't going to make this deal right now. They're not going to give up the season yet, unless the Cubs just made some kind of trade offer that would just, knock your socks off. And people ask me, I get, questioned all the time, if something happened to the Cubs outfield, who would be the guy you would bring up? It wouldn't be Kevin Alcantara. It'd be Owen Casey. And if I'm the Marlins, I'm going, you know what? I'll give you this guy for Owen Casey. And then all of a sudden he'd be that guy on their team that you're like, where did this guy come from? And he's like, hitting 30 home runs and batting like 280. I mean, because he's got that. That's what this guy is. So it would take a lot for me to trade this guy. And I feel like with the rest of the prospects, the Triantoses and the Ballesteros and other guys like that, I still wouldn't want to trade him, but I would be a lot more comfortable giving those guys up in a deal like that than Owen Casey. But if I'm the team trying to trade with the Cubs, I'm going Owen Casey all the way, because I think that the guy could be one of those 15-year big leaguers. Just do. I've always thought that the way he plays defense. He's like 20 years old, 21 years old. He's like a grown up. He's just a very consistent and smart and good player. All right, let's switch gears now and let's talk about Jed Hoyer talking to the media. Something that Craig Counsell did as well. Why did Matt Shaw get optioned to Iowa? What I thought was interesting is that first off, I'm listening, and they're asking him questions, and they're like setting him up to answer the question. Look, no, you just ask the question. Don't tell them all the other guys that were there before that got optioned down. We know that, but it's his job to say that. It's not your job to say that. You got to go and be like, hey, why did the guy get sent down? I feel like sometimes we hand deliver the answer instead of just letting him answer. And that's no disrespect to anybody in the press conferences, but and I love all of them, but let him answer it, right? Start there. Okay. You're in the media, let him answer the question. Don't give him the answer. But look, everything they said was right. I mean, besides Chris Bryant, everybody got sent back. Kyle Schwarber got sent back. Anthony Rizzo got sent back. You go down the list, a lot of guys got sent back, and he got sent back. He's batting 172, 18 strikeouts in 68 games. His defense was good. He gets on base a little bit, 294 because he walks. But Jed Hoyer talked about the fact that he was just making contact, but he wasn't driving the ball. They want him to be aggressive. They don't want him to be afraid not to hit it, right? And I could see them sending him back. It's tough to make the transition, especially when you don't spend enough time playing baseball in the minor leagues. And I keep telling you guys this. They wonder why these guys get up there like Pete Crow Armstrong and Matt Shaw. And I mean, go down the list. It's because we rush them to the big leagues. It's a tough transition. It used to be this to go from AAA to the big leagues. Now it's like this because they just want to get them there so fast. And that's why we had all these different levels of baseball in the past, because that's competitively. It's just, that's how long it takes to be ready when you get there. They're not ready. And the only reason that it's not Gage Workman is because they would have to send him back to the Tigers, and they don't want to do that. So Shaw, for all intents and purposes, is just taking a step back, get some at bats, and then swing back to the big leagues and make things happen there. They said, look, the goal is to have him back as their third baseman. I think that's really has to be the only goal, because it's not like they have a lot of options. They traded their options. Cam Smith was the third baseman of the future, traded him. Isaac Paredes, but you got one of the best players in the game in Kyle Tucker. So it's what happens. So it's up to Matt Shaw and Gage Workman, or John Birdie, or whoever else. But you don't look at the rest of the options and feel as comfortable as you do with Matt Shaw. And when you get to the big leagues, you're going to fail because they're really, really good. And I think that it's just kind of like what Jed Hoyer said, Hap, Rizzo, Javi, all those guys sent back, and he sent back Shaw, and somebody was telling me today Mickey Mantle got sent back. So I mean, it happens, right? It's just the bottom line is that the Cubs don't have a lot of depth at third base, and when you take him out of the mix and you start looking at the options, I mean, it feels like pretty shallow, right? It really does. I like Birdie on the bases, but he's not going to give you any power. Workman, we'll see what happens. I'd love to see Workman be a guy that kind of breaks out a little bit. We'll see what happens. But Shaw would be the best guy if he can get it going again, and we'll find out. Now, Cubs are heading back to Wrigley. They were 3-3 on the road trip to Dodgers and Padres. That's pretty damn good. Okay, you're talking about the two of the best teams in the National League, if not the two best. And the Cubs won a series from the Dodgers, and they lost 2 out of 3 to the Padres, but competitive games. The Cubs are playing the kind of baseball that I respect. They're tough. They're not easy to beat. You beat them, you better play a darn good game. They lost 4-2 yesterday, but hey, it's in San Diego. Had some opportunities, didn't take advantage of it, dealing with some injuries right now, but I like the competitiveness. I really do. Now, Eli Morgan has been one of the worst pitchers the Cubs have in the bullpen. Him and Nate Pearson are 2 guys that every time they get in the game, it gets away. And now they're talking about some kind of impingement with him. Does that mean he's going to go on the IL? We thought him coming over from Cleveland. I thought, hey, this is going to be a guy that we're going to really depend on. He's an excellent pitcher, and he's been terrible. And it could be because he's hurt. But Jed Hoyer made a comment that I thought was worth talking about. He said, all 8 guys giving us consistent outings. And in the past, I feel like the Cubs have settled for 3 guys giving consistent outings or 4 guys giving consistent outings, right? But not all 8. And we're not getting all 8 right now. But if you make that your standard and you live by that standard, you're going to win games because, you just keep looking for options until you find it. The Cubs were competitive 2 years ago, remember? But they only had 3 guys they could count on in the bullpen. There was 5 that you couldn't count on. So they burnt out Alzolay, and then it was all a lot of Merriweather and Leiter, and then you would get outside that and they couldn't do anything. And then last year, who knows? So getting 8 guys that you can count on is going to be, for this team, the difference between winning and losing a lot of baseball games. And it's tough to get there. But the fact that there's a sense of urgency because there's no contract after this year is nice, because they're not going to sit back and wait. They can't. And so, we'll see what happens there. Hopefully Tyson Miller will be back and can help out. It's going to be interesting just to kind of see how they continue to construct this roster. But I love the fact that, and I kind of wish that it was always like this, where you get into these 1-year deals and with the front office. And I guess part of it's if you need a long contract if you're going to make some moves, just because you want to take risks, but you don't want to feel like everybody's fired, right? Cubs are off today. They're back at it again on Friday, and it'll be Corbin Burns, our old friend from the Brewers, pitching now for Arizona against Colin Ray, who has been excellent in the bullpen, but another former Brewer. So a couple of former Milwaukee Brewers going at it. Wrigley Field 120 on Friday, and of course we'll be keeping an eye on that. But we'll keep an eye on all this stuff. What's going on? The funny thing is, we get reports that the Cubs are going to try to make a trade for a starter. Nobody's trading their starters right now. We could giving up right now. Subscribe, thumbs up. Thanks for hanging on the channel, and we will do it again tomorrow right here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Thanks, guys. Go Cubs.